All right, welcome to the Steaming Pile of Awesome, a podcast where my co-host and I, Darren Terzo, and of course me, Rob Korlick, watch shitty movies, so maybe you don't have to. Some of them are like this one, I think, 1990s Tremors. Sometimes they're so bad they're good. So I'm going to get right into this with you, Darren. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, so let's play a little game.
Perfection. A scorched outpost in the middle of nowhere.
You know how close I am to leaving this place right now?
How close?
Maybe that's why Val and Earl decided to leave town.
Hey, hold up. That's Edgar Deems.
They just picked the wrong day to do it.
Jeez.
You guys better get the hell out of here. There's a killer on the loose.
Who could be doing it? Is that a snake?
I'll give you boys $5 for this. 20.
That's how they get you. They're under the ground. What the hell are those things? How could they eat a whole station wagon?
But where do they come from?
I vote for outer space. No way these are local boys.
You see, they're headed right for us.
No Richter scale can measure it.
They're coming!
No scientist can explain it.
Bert, they're under the ground.
You didn't get penetration even with the elephant gun.
Run, run!
And no one knows what to call it.
Megaworms or suckers or suckoids.
Now, this valley is just one long smorgasbord.
Now, it's up to Val and Earl to save the world.
That's one big mother.
Who died and made you Einstein?
And they know just what to do. Flip for it.
Damn.
Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Tremors.
Okay, so let's play a little game of Would You Watch This? I'm going to give you the rundown of the film, and you tell me, based off of that premise and that premise only, if it's something that you would spend your time on. All right, here we go. Two men for hire are sick of their small-town lives, and they wish for more. But they choose the wrong day to pack up and leave because they find themselves trapped in their Desert Valley, Nevada town against a subterranean monster feeding on people. And a few sheep. Don't forget the sheep. With the help of a cute seismology student, they manage to accidentally kill the monster and study it in the first, 20 minutes of the movie. It turns out it's a huge worm with 6-foot sentient snakes for tongues that grab onto its victim and pull them into its mouth. They also notice it can move incredibly fast in the dirt. It has no eyes, which means that they deduce it must rely on sound only to hunt. The rest of the movie is a masterclass of this premise as they try to quietly escape and sometimes pole vault away from the 3 other monsters at large. They're chased into a town where they square off against these monsters in a local town market, a couple's basement, and later on a tractor-trailer bed being pulled by a bulldozer. The 2 heroes are victorious with a little help from homemade dynamite sticks. Darren, would you watch this?
First, you have to tell me if there is any star power attached to this movie.
Oh, there is. There is the great Kevin Bacon attached to this.
I'm in.
Oh, done. There you go.
Right
I knew there. I had you at Bacon.
Yeah, absolutely. At any point in this movie is he punch dancing his anger of oppression out in an abandoned warehouse.
See, I swear he did that in a movie, but I can't quite place which one it was. So it wasn't this one, though. It was a different one. Yeah, it could have been one. Yeah, I would watch it. Yeah, good. So let's start with the opening scene where we have our two heroes of the show, our hired men. They're fixing a barbed wire fence, and we're introduced to Val, played by Kevin Bacon, as we just said, and his older friend Earl, which is played by Fred Ward. And Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon are the 2 main heroes in this story. And they're trying to make a better life for themselves there. And they're trying to get out of this small town of 14 people called Perfection, Nevada. And they want more for themselves. And they want to get out of here. So the whole point of this is that Earl is saying to Val that they need to have a plan. That's the whole point of this, is that they need to have a plan. And then they have a septic tank backfire on them as they're trying to clean it. And they said, okay, enough's enough. We're out of here. So they pack up for a brighter future. And then they are on their way out of town when they come across an old friend of theirs named Edgar Deans. They recognize this guy, and he's found at the top of a telephone pole. And they go up to check on him because he's like, I guess, a local booze hound, and he may have gotten drunk and ended up there. And turns out, no, he dead. So we have our inciting incident, Darren. We have a dead person who has died from a doctor stating of dehydration after having climbed a telephone pole and with a rifle and just kind of staying up there until he died. So this is our weird inciting incident. So these two guys decide that their trip
I just
out of
gotta
perfection.
stop you there real quick.
Yeah,
Rob.
go ahead. Yeah.
Are we okay with the doctor's diagnosis of death, considering the autopsy was literally him looking at him from under a sheet in the back of a pickup truck?
This is not an area of my expertise, Darren. I'm afraid I have never studied how autopsies are supposed to go, so I'm purely going off of what I've seen in television shows, and this is one of those. So
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and trust his experience. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he did just sit in the back of their pickup truck. Yes, absolutely. Oh, you had to bring that up. You know what? That's good. I'm glad we're questioning the doctor on this one. He looked a little shady. I don't know. So the boys decide to put their leaving perfection on hold for just a little bit and decide to go back to the town market to kind of lay the bad news on everybody and say their goodbyes formally. And this is a great opportunity for us to kind of just break down a few of these characters, because this is really like a bunch of people caught somewhere and being hunted kind of movie. And I think that all these characters kind of get flushed out on their own as well. So do you want to just go with me here and just kind of break down these characters a little bit each, and then we'll get started into the meat of it? All right, right on. Okay, so at first they meet Rhonda, the seismologist, played by Finn Carter. She's like a student of seismology, and she's been sent out there for her summer internship or something like that, and she's studying these strange tremors that are happening in this valley that aren't really explainable. And then we get to Walter's Chang's Market, I believe is the name of the town grocery store. And Walter is played by Victor Wong, and I happen to know him from the Three Ninjas movies. He plays a character in those movies, and they might end up on this podcast. So I'm looking forward to those, because they made quite an impact on me. Oh, all three of those ninjas are going to come along. There might have been more of those too. This is like the second movie in a row where there are 5 of these movies somehow, and we need to talk about that too. How did that happen?
Somehow it's
yeah. All right. So we've got Melvin, played by Robert Jane, and he plays kind of this snot-nosed kid that's hanging out in the town and always getting into trouble.
Also, by the way, doesn't seem to have parents. He appears to be about 15 to 17 years old and just a shitty person doing goofy pranks while everybody's getting murdered. And nobody checks him in line, and nobody says parent at all throughout the movie.
Yeah, no one ever says, I will call your parents, and no one ever says, damn it, that's my son is acting up. Like there's no, to be honest though, like, would you claim Melvin if he was your kid? I don't know if I would either.
Yeah, no, I suppose not. But the zero mention of any kind of parental figure is odd in this movie.
Yeah, I pegged him at about 16 and definitely not able to handle himself in a setting by himself. So then we have Heather and Bert. These are played by Michael Gross and Reba McEntire. They play survivalists that have chosen to live this life in the middle of kind of nowhere and isolated from the rest of the world, and we get to know them a little bit. Of course, Heather being played in her first role as an actress, Reba McEntire. What did you think?
I think she actually held her own pretty well. We've seen a few actors transition over into acting that don't seem to cut the mustard, but Reba did a pretty good job. They should probably, after this, give her own sitcom series.
Yeah, I think that she would be much deserving of her own sitcom. What would you name it, though?
Reba?
I'd go with McEntire. Then more people would know it. Yeah. The dad, of course, from Family Ties is Michael Gross. So a very different role than what I was used to seeing him in growing up as a big Family Ties fan. Love me that Michael J. Fox. We have Miguel, played by Tony Gennaro, who will be a big factor later, so I'm just going to skip over him for now. Nestor, played by Richard Marcus, which my note in my book was, well, someone had to get eaten. That's all I had for him. And then rounding things up here, we have Nancy and Mindy. So Nancy's Charlotte, played by Charlotte Stewart from Twin Peaks and Little House on the Prairie, and she's the lady in the movie that's wearing this big, bright purple set of coveralls. And her daughter Ariana Richards plays Mindy, and of course Ariana Richards, Darren, is
also from Jurassic Park, having the worst decade of being chased by monsters you could possibly have.
She has been chased by way more monsters than I have. That is absolutely true. She's popping around in the beginning of the movie on a pogo stick going for a world record. And I think they mentioned she's up to like 600 at one point. So that's kind of a fun scene where they drive past her and ask her. So there's all of these guys who are stuck in this town together when everything starts to go down. So the boys come back and kind of let them in on the bad news that the local booze hound has died and climbed a tower for some reason. And then they say their goodbyes and they are on their way out. On their way out, they come across a sheep farmer's yard where they basically pull his hat off of the ground and they find his head buried in the sand. So they feel like there might be a psychopath running around killing people and putting them up on telephone wires and burying heads in the sand. So they're more than happy to get the hell out of here. But when they drive past these local road workers, they give them a warning. They say,
Better get the hell out of here. There's a killer on the loose. What? A murderer, man. A real psycho. He's cutting people's heads off. I'm not kidding.
They're pulling our chain.
And these guys basically say, yeah, these guys are locals. They're just messing with us. And then they keep working. So why don't you talk us through what happens next? Because this is one of my favorite things to see at the beginning of a movie. Go ahead.
Then they are promptly attacked by the exact thing that they were warned about. One of them just continues jackhammering away, and the other one is at the truck. Now, here's what I didn't understand was later on in the movie, we find out that these monsters are able to only sense the ground vibrations.
Yes.
But the monster goes right underneath. Right underneath the jackhammer, takes the jackhammer straight to what we can presume is the spine, and then proceeds to take off with it instead of just coming up and grabbing the guy as all of the other times in the movie. So either way, it's a little
incongruent with what has happened later in the movie. Is what you're saying?
But either way, we have the jackhammer goes in, and then the tremor keeps taking off and takes that jackhammer right through the concrete like it's nothing, almost like a giant shark fin.
Yeah, this is great. This is absolutely great.
Dispatches quickly of both of the construction workers. They were obviously no match for the giant worm. And just moves about its business after that.
Sure.
How many times do Val and Earl try and leave the small town only to find a dead body?
Yeah, I counted at least 3 because they and it could be more. But it's like this escalating cycle where they go back and forth to the marketplace. I think 3 times.
Keep going to the border,
And every time they come back with more bad news. It's absolutely fantastic because they go and
everybody seems to be pretty not shocked. They're all like, they leave, they come back, and they're like, well, we found a dead body, and everybody's like, oh, that's too bad, and they leave. And they come back and they're like, well, it happened again. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, okay, that's cool. And then they leave for a third time and come back and they're like, well, this time the construction workers are dead and the road is blocked, and everybody's like, "Oh shucks!"
Mhm.
Now at this point, I feel like the whole town would rise up against Earl and Val because they're obviously killing people, and just
They
coming
could
back and
very
being
well
like,
be.
"Oh shucks!"
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Could it be they're just a bunch of pranksters and these guys are just sick of their you know what at this point because they've maybe pulled this a few times before?
It could be.
Oh, there's another dead body on the road.
Oh, no, we better leave town.
Maybe they were just happy to have him gone. I don't know.
Could be.
So they're on their way back, as you mentioned. They've gone and come back, and then they've gone again. But this time the construction workers are dead. The road has been completely destroyed. There is absolutely no way for them to drive to the next town at this point, so they have to turn around and go back. But as they turn around and go back, they get hung up on something. The back tires start spinning, and Kevin Bacon's character Val has to just gun it to get out of the rut or whatever the hang up they had. And they keep driving, where they discover when they get back to the marketplace that the thing that has been killing all these people is now attached to their axle. So they go outside and take a quick look at this thing, and it's like this long, slimy, snake-like creature with these gross entrails hanging out the back, and it's wrapped itself around the axle and it's bit down, and it's obviously strong enough that it can hold on to an entire truck full of two grown men, but they've managed to rip it in at least half. And this has sparked everyone's interest. Now everyone's actually paying attention. So, like you said,
Right.
they weren't really taking them seriously until they see this snake thing. Yeah, this thing had an impact on me as a kid, man. I was freaked right out when I saw this thing. They decide to sell it to Mr. Chang for like $15 or something because he like wants it. Yeah. They mentioned that it thing stinks. Like, it really stinks. This is like an underlying thing for the entire movie, that this thing really stinks. So yeah, they decide to tell everybody that this is happening, and then they get to the next scene. So now we go back to the same doctor that we talked about earlier. It's nighttime. Him and his wife are doing like finishing construction on their house, and it's getting to be dark, and their generator conks out on them. Why don't you take us through this scene, Darryn? Go ahead.
Yeah, so the what they believe, the generator is conked out. As an audience, what we figure is happening is the monster's coming for them. And we're absolutely right. So doctor gets to the generator location. The generator has been sucked up into the ground. They decide to start walking back to their vehicle, and he gets snagged and then starts to go under. She grabs a 2x4. He holds onto it. It snaps like a twig, and then he gets sucked under the rest of the way. She digs for him for a second, and one of the monsters comes up. She runs to the car, closes the door, and this was what I found funny, was that like the monster wasn't powerful enough to smash through the glass,
Right?
But then it was powerful enough to dig a hole and suck her entire vehicle down with her in it.
Yeah, and at that point, we don't know that there's more to this story. So, yeah, they can't get into the car, but then the car starts to get sucked backwards. She had jumped through the back door of this station wagon, and in the process of getting to the front and realizing she doesn't have keys, she knocks a stereo over, and it starts playing music quite loudly.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the car actually dip backwards and disappear, like back bumper first, straight up and down into the dirt. And the last scene is the two flickering headlights pointing straight up into the sky, and her screaming, and she's gone. So she has disappeared into the night. While this is going on, everyone else at the market is kind of trying to figure out what to do. So they've got a 38-mile trip to go to Bixby, which is the nearest town, and they want to go for help because they've noticed that the radios are all conked out and the telephone lines are all dead, and they're not sure why. This is like, way back in 1990 was like text messages and cell phones weren't even thought of. So they have to get someone to go for help. So they volunteer the two boys, our heroes, to go on horseback and go get help. So they agree, and they saddle up the horses. They take some ammo and some food, and they ride to Bixby. Well, on the way happens to be the doctor's house, so they decide they're going to check on him as it's on their way. They get there, they look around. There's no one around, but they can hear the music. So they go checking for the music, and they brush off some of the dust, and sure enough, they find the headlights of the car. So they know something has happened there, and it's all messed up. And this is when the horses start getting spooked. So why don't you take us through this scene now, Darren?
Yeah, so the horses come to a dead stop in mid-sprint because they take off from the doctor's house like a bat out of hell. And Kevin Bacon starts complaining about the horse. But Earl actually says that they're shook up by something, and it's because they obviously sense the tremor or the worm underneath the ground. So Kevin Bacon gets bucked off, and Earl's horse manages to hold on, but then one of its feet gets snagged underneath. They both topple to the ground, and then they watch in horror as the giant worm eats the horse.
Yes.
So,
and we get one
gone.
of our...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we get one of these really interesting lines. It almost made my top 4, but we get one of the first good lines in the movie here from Kevin Bacon, where he says,
"That's how they get you. They're under the goddamn ground."
They see the snake heads come up, and they're eating the horse. They shoot at it a couple of times, and then we get the first actual shot of the real monster, the monster proper here. We've been referring to it as a bunch of different things: worm, tremor. We don't really have a good name for these things because they're so weird and gross. But you have this gigantic worm pop out of the ground, and those snakes that we thought were just those things were the monster. Those are just its tongues. So you have these 3 tongues coming out of this thing and biting into the horse and dragging it under the ground. And at this point, the 2 guys are out of there. They're hightailing it, and they are running the opposite direction. So my favorite part of this scene is when, as they're running down by a fence line of barbed wire. And as they run, the thing is chasing them, and it's knocking over the fence posts every time it gets close. Kind of like the jaws and the barrels. I kind of felt like it was doing the same job for me. I really, really liked that. I was really buying into that. So they're running. They get to this dirt retaining wall, and they decide that what the hell, they might as well jump. So they jump. They aim for the bushes. They don't make it. And luckily for them, the thing hits the wall going full speed and puts a 10-foot crack all the way around the cement wall. And then they realize that they have killed this thing. So they kill this thing. It drips out of the wall. They use a stick to kind of bust it open. And sure enough, they get a first real close-up look at the head of this thing. And it is all kinds of nasty. And this is when they get greeted by their friend Rhonda. Rhonda has been working out in the field, and she has popped by to see them and see what they were working on. And the 3 of them make this discovery together. So basically, after finding out how long this thing is and how big this thing is by digging it up, they kind of figure out from her notes that there's got to be at least 3 more out there to make the type of tremors that she's been experiencing on her equipment that she thought was faulty. And at that moment, they're jumped by another one, and they've got to run to a big pile of rocks to get free. So why don't you talk us through this part, Darren?
So they go to safety because obviously the creature can't get up through the rock as it comes through the ground. So they chill out on the rocks overnight, and they try to figure out what the next course of action is. And they, Kevin Bacon, which is actually funny because Kevin Bacon knows that the monster is about 30 feet long and about 6 feet in diameter. Right. And he's got about a 4-foot piece of wood, and he's tapping the ground. And Earl at this point is like, he yells down to him, and he's like, "Hey, watch out! That thing can reach at least 6 feet." Yeah. And he brushes him off, and he just keeps tapping it, very nonchalant, which is just odd because at this point it's already killed the guy up the telephone post. Yeah. It's killed the 2 construction workers. It's killed the farmer. It's killed the doctor and his wife, and swallowed a car whole. They've watched it eat a horse,
Yes.
And now another one, and he's just like, I think I'm okay. And
I'll be fine.
He's got like a 4-foot branch, and he's just like, and hitting the ground. And of course, true to form, it pops up from the ground, and he somehow gets scared by it.
Yep.
And scurries back up the rock. So at this point, they...
you wouldn't be scared by it?
Yeah. I mean, I would be scared, but I would be expecting it.
Yes, fair.
So at this point, Rhonda they start trying to figure out some plans of how to get themselves to a more mobile ground.
Mm-hmm.
And Rhonda comes up with the idea that they're gonna stay on the rocks and go from rock formation to rock formation, which is brilliant. And lucky for them, there are 3 12-foot, perfectly round, straight cylinders made of wood
dowels
on the ground. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they would be there. And so they use those to, in probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie, they just jam it into the ground and then go from one rock to the next and one rock to the next, all 3 of them.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, where he's got like, he spits in his hands, he rubs them together, and he's got this face that I wouldn't even dare to try and copy, but it's like determination, like.
They get into the truck. All 3 of them.
They all go together.
They all pole vault into the truck at the same time.
All pole vault in sync.
So then Rhonda demonstrates her exceptional ability to not only drive with her ass out of the window in between the cab and the box.
Right,
and
the box truck window.
Yeah, I mean, somehow she manages to start the truck while hanging out the box. And this is the part that I didn't know. Like, I don't know how she got it into drive, because you need to apply the brake.
Drive.
Somehow.
That is
that is
so
she gets it into drive without using the brake somehow, and then just hammers the gas, and luckily the truck is steering itself not into other rocks, and they make their getaway.
Tremors. Yeah.
So at that point they're scot-free, and she's able to hop back in at some point, and they're headed back to town.
While she's fumbling with the keys and getting it started, Kevin Bacon and Earl are in the back of the box chilling out when one of the snake tongues comes up to bite into Kevin Bacon, and he up and one punches this thing and knocks it stupid.
It was a really well landed shot. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was great. So then we get back again to the market town. We get back inside the grocery store, and this is probably the 3rd or 4th time that they've returned. And they basically they're all discussing what to do next, because their plan with the horses failed. Well, not all of them are talking about what to do next. Some of them are talking about what to name them. And I think that this is something that you and I have even struggled with here now. Like, they start with the word snakeoid, and then they eventually settle on graboids. The graboids are the things that are taking you in and dragging you, which even I have to say, someone who absolutely loves this movie, a graboid, I'm not a fan of the name, Darren. They didn't ever once call them Tremors. I think that's what they do. I don't think that's what they are. So here's the $1 million question, man. Can you think of anything better that they should be called?
I honestly can't. And I had hung myself up on this one for a while as well. And as terrible as graboid is, and it sounds like it should be robotic, maybe robo-snake. That's about as good as
come quietly.
That's about as good as exactly. So no, I think graboid
the
was
$6 million snake. The $6 million snake. We can rebuild it. We can make it stronger.
We have the technology.
I do not want you to feel bad, Darren, because I have been racking my brain since I watched this movie to try and think of something better, and I could not think of anything that would even resemble it. But I will tell you that Graboid was their second choice. Because when I started looking into some of the research on this, which I won't get into too much here, but I just find it's too compelling not to tell you, the original name of them was land sharks. They were going to be called land sharks.
That would have been better.
Yeah, except Saturday Night Live ruined it because they had a character that would come onto the show that was a shark trying to make it in the real world and he was the land shark.
Yeah.
So they had to go back to the drawing board and they came up with Graboid. So I feel like, if nothing else, buddy, this helps me realize that when a name like Sharknado comes along and you really sink your teeth into a name like Sharknado and it just works so perfectly that you can't, you got to appreciate it because, like, I mean, obviously it's not as easy as they make it sound.
Right, yes.
Yeah. So, Melvin is being his little prick of himself, like, joking around. So he gets kicked out of the grocery store for being annoying. But meanwhile, Nancy decides she needs to go looking for Mindy because no one knows where she is, and she finds her pogoing on the street. Well, Val realizes that she is in mortal danger, and he takes off running after her. And Rhonda is in close pursuit as well. And Val saves the little girl just in time to see the pogo stick get bit and sucked straight down into the ground and spit out behind them. When the girl decides to catch up to Val, they usher the two into their own house, and then they head off in the opposite direction. So in the process, Rhonda is tangled up in barbed wire. She's got barbed wire hung up on her legs. So she trips and falls. At this point, Val is up on top of a truck or a van or something, and he's yelling at her to get up because she's now just right on the ground, ready to be eaten. And the graboid comes up out of the ground and pops her up right on her butt, and she rolls off the top of the graboid as it does this, and in the process completely gets tangled, wound up 180 degrees in barbed wire. So she is absolutely stuck. She cannot get anywhere, and Val has to save her. So to save her, he uses a pickaxe, and then has to get her out of her pants, literally, to save her life.
They already know that this thing it can only sense people by the tremors that people cause.
Right.
And yet somehow Mindy is out jumping on a pogo stick with headphones.
Yes. They've lost track of her. I think she kind of went off without permission.
Nobody really says anything. They're just like, well, I guess I got to go find Mindy. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Someone does say something. Melvin says something. He says, she's fine. I just saw her out there.
Right. Yes. Sorry. I just saw her jumping on her pogo stick in the middle of the street.
She's fine.
Yeah. So of course, I had a little problem
but they did save her. They did save her. They had lots of time. They figured it out. So they're running back into the store, and they have one of the coolest effects there. And I wanted to ask you this. I know you're not an expert in this stuff, but like, I could not figure out how they did this. But this is one of my favorite special effects in the whole movie, and I could not find any information on how they did it. But basically, they're running down the boardwalk to get back into the grocery store, and the boardwalk is doing like the wave thing, like a wave as the monster goes underneath it. And it ends up like following them with this like bubble of boards as it goes, and then they end up getting back into the house. So like, how do you think they did that, man? Like that was really cool.
My guess would be pistons, automated pistons.
Okay. And just time them right to pop the
put
boards
it underneath
up at the right
and probably
time.
just like air pressure, automated air pressure, and just pop.
That's cool.
That would be my guess. Yeah.
Nice. The guys in the movie, they said they tried to make every special effect in this movie simple and foolproof. So that would make sense. That does make sense to me, man. But they didn't actually talk about that one in particular.
Yeah.
So they're inside the store. Everyone's trying to be quiet. Val is cleaning up the wounds on Rhonda with some iodine, and they're kind of having a little cute moment. But everybody's being quiet. When, guess what? The Pepsi machine decides to kick back on again and start cooling everything off. And Earl, Val, and Walter go to stop it. This goes perfectly, and there are no issues, and the movie's over, and we're good to go, right?
Not at all.
Oh,
it does
damn.
not go well for anybody. So just as they manage to unplug the machine and silence happens, monster pops up from underneath the store, and unfortunately, we wave goodbye to Mr. Chang.
Yeah, Mr. Chang.
But
is,
not before
is
he
eaten.
named the creature Graboid.
Yes,
So
he does get that credit.
His role is done. His life is
Yes.
complete. And
Yes.
it's time to say goodbye.
And he can rest. Yeah.
Yes.
Inside the belly of a disgusting, smelly worm.
Mm-hmm.
So all of our heroes at this point are climbing the shelves of the grocery store to get away from the ground. And the monster is knocking the shelves over like dominoes. And this causes Rhonda to take a tumble out one of the windows. So everyone's a little concerned, but when they get outside and they get to the roof, they notice that she has climbed the water tower that's immediately beside the grocery store, and they are good to go. At this point, are the people we haven't talked much about for a while here since the beginning, Heather and Bert. They've returned from their trip, and they're back at their house, and they are making bullets. So the noisy bullet making machine that they have attracts the graboids and sends them their way. So we've got another scene here. This is something special, man. I cannot wait to discuss this with you. So Bert and Heather are in their basement making bullets, getting ready for what they know is going to be a pretty nasty fight with something they have never seen yet. And they are making these bullets. They're making this noise. They hear the sound coming. The bulletin board pops off the wall, and you get an entrance fit for a king, man. This thing pops through the cindercrete block basement, and we have a full-on 100% in-your-face monster shot.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you take it from here, man?
Yeah, so first of all, the Graboid busts in like the Kool-Aid man.
Right
through the brick wall.
Oh, yeah.
But he is unfortunately finds that he has broken into Sarah Connor's basement because this place is just littered with guns on the wall.
Yeah,
Reba McEntire and the dad from Family Ties just go off on this Tremor.
Go
on the
full
Graboid.
Punisher on this thing.
They dump
every clip.
Yeah, they dump no less than 300 rounds into this thing. Two of which are the elephant gun, which finally finishes it off.
Before that, a signal, like an emergency signal flare as well.
Flare, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. They put everything they had into that one, and they finally did kill it though. So
the way they reveal that they have the giant wall of guns is one of my favorite things in the whole movie. Maybe my favorite thing, because they're emptying these clips into this thing. They're firing every bullet, and it is still coming at them. And then all of a sudden, the camera just slowly pans behind them as they run out of bullets to reveal the giant wall of guns. It literally made me laugh out loud when I saw it. I was like, "Oh, I think they're going to be fine." Yeah. Did they actually have to break the glass to get the elephant gun out of its case?
Yes, the elephant gun was
stored away
behind glass. Yeah,
it was like
in case of unstoppable emergency, Graboid break the glass.
Yeah,
it was very
so good,
and it looked like a sliding door too. Like, he could have just slid it, but he was like, "I'll get the elephant."
No time for that.
Yeah, exactly.
No time for that. This scene is full of full-life, full-sized creatures that these people made for this movie, and it's also got miniatures in it where they did a quarter-scale little puppet, and it is fantastic. It's seamless. There's only one scene that's not so seamless, where it's kind of like the obviously the green screen where they're shooting at each other. But everything else in this scene just looks fantastic. So meanwhile, the other Graboid is learning from his scenario or her scenario or its scenario. I don't even know. Why would I try and put a gender on this worm thing? But it's trying to knock down the foundation of the building to try and cave them in. So they have the building is starting to collapse, and the other one is trying to get Nestor. So it knocks Nestor off of his mobile home, and he is scurrying around on the ground, and he has to find someplace safe. So where does he hide? He hides on top of a tractor tire.
Yeah, he basically lays down in the tractor tire like a hammock.
Yes.
And then is surprised to find that is not enough protection.
No, Nestor, that's no good. Come on, you gotta get higher.
No way, man.
That was not nearly high enough.
Yeah.
He is sucked ass first through the middle of the tractor tire like a straw, slurping up a milkshake. And you see this great scene where like they have the camera tracking along the ground, and you hear the screaming loud, and then it fades slowly away to nothing as he gets eaten by the worm. It's great. So we've had this series of fantastic scenes over and over and over again here. So we get that's the one that I really wanted to talk about, because that whole scene with the Pepsi machine and the whole showdown, that to me is like where I completely 100% fell in love with this movie. So to wrap it up, their new plan is because the buildings are falling down, they can't stay here, they can't wait for help, they got to get out of here. So the plan is they're going to use a riding lawnmower as a diversion. Miguel thought that one up. And get the bulldozer, hook it up to an old semi-trailer, and they're going to load everyone on, and they're going to head to the mountains where the graboids can't follow them. So Val and Earl have this argument over who's going to go, and they agree that Earl is going to go. They've been playing rock paper scissors for all their major life events up to this point, and Earl wins, so Earl gets to choose, and Earl gets to go. And Val decides, no, not today. And he totally Black Widows it, and he takes off instead. So we have we've got Val on the ground. He takes this huge butt bump 10 feet off of the ground, landing firmly on his ass.
Good luck, shithead.
Don't worry about me, jerk off.
Whoever took this stunt is walking away with a broken tailbone. I don't care who he is. And he is taking off for the bulldozer. So tries to get to the rig. He doesn't quite make it because the lawnmower tips over, and we get this really cool tense scene where the snakes are searching for Val, and Val has to stay perfectly quiet while everyone else makes lots of noise. But Val does eventually get to the rig. So meanwhile, while they're picking everyone up, Bert and Heather are making these homemade pipe bombs, which when they ask them what are in those things, they say, just a few household chemicals mixed in the proper proportions. Which I thought was great.
Line. Yeah.
Oh, so good. And like, I always have a problem in movies. Like, I love realism, but I hate when they teach people how to do really bad things in movies sometimes. I kind of feel like that's never a good idea. So this movie is like perfect for that. Like it's a perfectly dropped line. It makes all the sense in the world. The character would say it. At this point, we got to know him, and they don't say a damn thing about it, which I absolutely love. I love that. I love that kind of stuff. So
I will say that as they're making their pipe bombs, they cut the pipe from like PVC chimney stack or whatever it is coming out of the roof. Yeah. They make probably 20 pipe bombs that are all about a foot long.
Yep. That was a long stack when they started.
Yeah.
So
fine. They definitely got their they got a PVC stretcher on the roof, obviously.
Yeah, they had a playpen or something. Well, maybe they had like a tower, like a watchtower. They seem like the type of people that don't
TV
trust
antenna
anyone.
Was made out of PVC piping.
I'm okay with that. All right.
Okay.
We're head cannoning a bit.
Yeah.
All right. So we got the final showdown. They're all in the tractor. They're all moving along with the bulldozer in the trailer, and the snake monsters the graboids have made a trap, and they've fallen into the trap, and they've all taken a tumble out of this thing. And they've got to get to safety. So they immediately run. And for the second time in the movie, they are stranded on a huge pile of rocks. So At this point, they don't know what to do. They've got all their ammo, but they know they're very limited in time, and they cannot get to the Freedom. The Freedom Mountains are too far away at this point. So they come up with this idea. They're going to go fishing. So how do they do this, Darren?
They basically just throw the PVC bomb out into the ground, and then when it hits the ground, they kind of just drag it along until the graboid grabs it, takes it down, bomb goes boom.
Nice.
Works like a charm.
And in the first case, it works absolutely like clockwork. We have the first graboid munch down on this thing, nom nom nom, and kaboom.
Yeah.
And we get a huge explosion with lots of worm guts flying all over everybody. And I thought, holy man, they have used a lot of pumpkin guts for this movie.
Yeah, it was definitely pumpkin. It was nothing but pumpkin.
Just pumpkin and just a goopy mess.
Yeah.
And I think at one point Melvin takes like a big intestine chunk to the head, and he's got to wipe his eyes off, which I really enjoyed. I know I was supposed to, yeah. So they try it again with the final worm. There's one worm left. They've been referring to it at this point as Stumpy because it only has two of the worms in its mouth because they pulled the third one off with their truck. So this is the one that the boys have been involved with the most. So they've been referring to him as Stumpy, which I absolutely loved. So Earl and Val are fishing for this one, and they get it to bite down. It sucks it in underground. Everybody's celebrating, and it spits it back out at them.
Right back out.
So this one's smart. This one's learning.
Now, I don't know if you caught this at this point, but as the graboid spits the pipe bomb back out, you can actually hear it yell, "Kobe," because he absolutely swishes this pipe bomb into the bag of the rest of the pipe bombs.
It lands in the bag with the rest of their bombs.
I had to rewind it a couple times, but sure enough, graboid yells, "Kobe!"
No. Just stop.
10 years before Kobe was a thing. It was exceptional.
They were ahead of their time.
Monsters ahead of their time.
Front this on me. Jeez, we were having such a good podcast. So yeah. Anyway, they have one bomb left. The explosion has knocked them all clear of the rocks, and we find our three heroes out in the middle of the dirt, and Stumpy is bearing down in on them. They have one bomb left. Kevin Bacon's character, Val, has this one bomb left, and Earl and Rhonda are pleading. They're begging for him to use the bomb that will scare it away so that they can get back to the rocks. But Val doesn't want to do that because that means that they would most certainly die out there waiting for the thing to eat them, and he's not about that. So he has himself an idea, and he takes off running in the opposite direction. So he's going to light the bomb in the opposite direction. Earl goes with him because, bros got to stick together. And of course, Rhonda goes with them because the two idiots forgot their lighter, and she has it. So the three of them run the other direction towards the canyon. They find themselves trapped against the edge of the canyon, where they break the fuse down to the bare minimum. Rhonda lights it. Val overthrows it, so it lands just behind the worm, and the explosion startles it, and Stumpy takes off like a bat out of hell, going straight at the ravine, and sure enough, they dive out of the way at the last second, and we get Stumpy falling clean off the side of the ravine, landing at the bottom in quite possibly the goopiest mess possible for a lot of tomato soup and again pumpkin. Here we are done. The three worms have been defeated, and all that's left is a awkward goodbye between Val and Rhonda, where he tries to say all of the things he's thinking and gets none of them out. And then, of course, he works up the courage, and sure enough, he kisses her. He plants one on her, Darren, and she is totally okay with that. There is 100% consent in her eyes at that point. She wants hers Kevin Bacon a BLT. She wants here.
She wants the BLT.
She wants the BLT. So funny story, during my research here, this was actually a reshoot because they actually didn't have them together at the end of the movie originally, but they actually had done a couple of test screenings, and at the end of the movie they actually had a lot of people basically chanting and screaming like kiss her, kiss her, kiss her. So they ended up going back after filming had capped and doing one more reshoot of them. Actually, that last scene was kind of like just like in response to a huge fan base. Yeah. So of course the credits roll. We get the big crane shot where they're making out and it pans away, and you get the credits rolling with a Reba McEntire song going in there, and that's the Tremors. That's Tremors 1, and then there are 4 more which I have never seen. Have you ever seen any of the other ones, Darren?
No, I have not. I have
either.
seen this movie several times up until I watched it before this. I remember it as one of the movies that growing up as a kid, I would have seen probably at least 10 times on TV.
Yeah,
it's just one of those ones.
We grew up in the TBS era where like they had like the movies with all of the good parts cut out, and then just 2.5 hours of commercials involved. And I would still watch this movie when it was like that. So to get to see it on Netflix for free and just enjoy this movie with all of its gore and guts and swearing, pardon my French.
Fuck you! Pardon my French.
As they swear a whole bunch there. That's great. So who's your favorite characters?
I think for this one I got to go with Val, with Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon rocks this movie.
Yeah.
He is.
I'm a big Kevin Bacon fan.
Oh yeah, I know you are. You love everything Kevin Bacon.
And even some things
except
he
Invisible
hasn't done.
Man. Right. Except. Oh, we're getting into Yacht Club. Are we gonna? We don't have time to discuss Yacht Club. So yeah. We'll leave that one for an Easter egg for our viewers to find.
Care for a MLT? I love this scent. I love that my last name is Bacon.
So yeah, Kevin Bacon's awesome in this movie. He's serious, he's funny, he's goofy, he does everything that he needs to do in the movie, and you can't help but love his character. He does a fantastic job making this real for me. I don't know about you, but my favorite character, I'm actually going to give it to 2 people. I'm going to give it to characters because I feel like they're so perfectly together. I'm giving it to Heather and Bert. I feel like Heather and Bert brought such an important part for me that grounded this movie. They absolutely they felt so real. Like they felt like real people. And to be played by Reba McEntire in her first role, she absolutely amazed me. And again, to see the Family Ties dad just rocking it as a military survivalist in the middle of nowhere with his bunker house. I loved them. I loved them. They stole the show for me. So
I will say that they of all the characters, they were the most believable Southern states people.
Sure.
Just a wall full of guns and ready for the apocalypse.
Yeah, they even said they had a bomb shelter in their house. Yeah,
which I don't know if I'm assuming he meant his basement where all the guns were.
Maybe.
And that
I felt like they might have been
Graboid
more.
got through that pretty easily.
Yeah, he did okay. Yeah, I think that there might have been like another one. There must have been something else. Yeah, I feel like he wouldn't have said a bunker if he meant his basement.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's probably true.
I don't call my basement a bunker, but yeah.
It's because you don't have 5 years worth of food.
That's true. Or a wall of guns that you know of. Yeah. So my favorite part of our podcast is when I get to pick 4 different quotes and you get to pick which one was your favorite. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of each of these here, and then we're going to be on our way out.
Lay it on me.
The first one comes from when the Val and Earl meet the first graboid, and they see it for the first time, and they run away from it and jump into the retaining wall, and it smacks into the wall and kills itself accidentally. When they finally take a look at it, and it stopped moving and everything's calmed down for a second, Earl goes to Val and says, "That stupid son of a bitch knocked itself cold." And Val returns and says, "Cold my ass. It's dead." Love this line. So that's my first one. The second one is when Earl and Val are choosing who goes to run to the rig, and they're discussing. Well, Earl is older, Val is faster. Okay, well, Earl works the rig better. He knows how to handle it better. And then he says, Earl says, "Damn it, listen to me, kid. I'm older and I'm wiser." And Val's response is,
"Oh, well, we agree on one of those two."
Yeah. Well, you're half right.
Yeah.
"Damn it, listen to me. I'm older and I'm wiser." Well, you're half right. That's my number 2. Number 3 comes from when they're fishing. I deliberately left this one out. So Earl is talking to Bert, and he says, "Hey, what kind of a fuse is that?" And Bert says, "Oh, it's my cannon fuse." And he goes, "Oh, what do you use it for?" Bert's response is, "My cannon."
Now
Cannon
that would have
never
been
gets any
amazing
love in this movie.
if they had instead of smashing out the glass to the elephant gun, if
Yes.
he had been like, "Oh shit," and opens the door to the next room and just, and it's got it has to have
Those old medieval,
that are
the old wooden wheels
all the way up, and he's just waiting for the fuse to light. Even the Tremors, one of the arms pops out and it's waiting for the fuse. Are we doing this? Cannonball.
So, boom.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. It might be in the sequels. We don't know.
Yeah,
we will never know.
Tremors
we will
4.
never know. No way to find out. Yeah. So, and then the last line, I had to have it in because it's a really important line. All throughout the movie, Val is getting hammered on by Earl, saying the reason why he's not successful in life is because he never thinks ahead and he doesn't have a plan. This comes up 4 or 5 times throughout the movie. And of course, at the very end of the movie, when the entire safety of everyone is in Val's hands, he takes off running towards the ravine, and they say, "What the hell are you doing?" And his response is,
"I got a goddamn plan!"
And we have our 4th line for you to choose from, Darren. Which one is your favorite?
I think I got to go with line 4. I got me
4.
a goddamn plan.
Oh, that's a good one.
What I do like about Earl ragging on Val the entire movie and saying that the reason that he isn't successful and the reason he doesn't have this and that is because he doesn't have a plan. And Earl thinks of himself as a planner.
Yes.
Earl, who is at least 10 years his senior and doing the same job in the same town and ragging on the young guy.
Young guy. Yeah.
That's
he doesn't realize it's a little hypocritical. Where are your plans, Earl?
Super ironic, yeah.
His plan is to meet the Dixie Chicks. I'm sure of that. That is what is going to go down.
Yeah. Love it.
So the first thing that I found out was in the credits. There was a song in the movie that was played. I've never heard it, but it is a song called "Drop Kick Me Jesus" by Bobby Bear. This was the first tidbit that I thought was really interesting. The creature effects for this movie were done by 2 guys. 2 guys did all the creature effects, their company. Their names are Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis. Funny, interesting fact you may not have known about these 2 guys is that their movie that they did right before this one in 1990 was the Aliens movie. They were responsible for a lot of the Aliens effects.
It's actually not surprising.
Right. The slobber effects were very similar, I think, and the way the animatronics worked. And they also made Goro for the movie Mortal Kombat. What the? So I thought that was something that was kind of interesting. The director is Ron Underwood, and this is his first directorial debut. But later, movies that you may have heard of that he did after this were City Slickers and Mighty Joe Young, 2 pretty well-known and critically acclaimed movies. Yeah. So the guy's got skills. This movie, directorially speaking, I think is fantastic. So the way he sets off and pays off stuff in this movie and films it is great. And he had a lot of challenges to work through. I'm not an expert, but even I could tell what they were doing wasn't easy. The guy who wrote this movie was Brent Maddock. His writing partner was S.S. Wilson, and they originally wrote Land Sharks and then had to change the title. The reason why they got this movie approved was because they had just sold their first script to major critical acclaim. These two guys wrote one of your favorite movies, I happen to know. They wrote Short Circuit.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
same guys who
fantastic.
wrote Tremors wrote Short Circuit.
Yeah, that's a very interesting connection. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a $12 million budget. They had to build the town in the middle of nowhere from scratch, and it took them 2 months. And just one little piece of tidbit of information that I loved pulling the curtain back on, because I really loved the Bugs Bunny hump of dirt they did. So they had like the hump of dirt following along every time they couldn't show the monster, but they wanted to have it chase someone. So to achieve that effect, they dug a trench, they filled it with soft dirt on top, and then they used a tractor to pull one of those like marine buoys, like those things you put on the side of a boat to make sure it doesn't scrape the dock. So they pulled that through the dirt, and that's what created that hump. That is as simple and as cool as it gets.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
right. One little piece that I have for you, actually.
Ooh.
So
my goodness, this is new. I like this. Go ahead.
Fran Carter.
I'm all a quiver. Okay.
Fran Carter, the actress who played Rhonda.
Yes.
Never appeared in another movie again.
No.
This was it for her. Tremors was so bad
that
she actually had to walk away from acting.
Oh, no.
Possibly not for that reason. But we'll go with it.
Okay.
So, all right.
You're standing by that? You're planting your flag on that one?
Yeah,
I think she did great. She did a good job.
Let's do our ratings here and get the good people home to their wives.
Let's get them on out of here. All right. Rotten Tomatoes scores this movie an 88% from critics and a 75% from audience, for a grand total of 81 points when you average the two. We're going to take that average, we're going to add it to our average, and that will come up with a final score, Darren. Darren, did you like this movie, and what do you score it?
I did like this movie. It was you could tell there wasn't a ton to work with. I mean, it is just a very classic horror movie. People running from bad place to bad place, making poor decisions the whole way, no character development, couple of scary monsters.
We're going to agree to disagree on the character development. I feel like all the characters got some good development. But go ahead.
We don't even know whose parents Melvin belongs to. So don't sit there and tell me that there was any kind of character development.
We know Mindy's. So that's all that matters.
Getting to the score, what I will say was I think it was pretty good. The acting was as good as it needed to be for what it was. It was a 90s horror. Let's call it an 80s horror movie because they were filming in the 80s.
Right. You bet.
So I am going to give this a 73.
73. Good job, Darren. Good job. 73%. All right. So we'll take your 73. We'll average it at my score, and we'll come up with a score, and we'll announce the scoreboard at the beginning of the next episode. How do you feel about that?
That works.
Good. Now, my turn. Okay. Darren, I love this movie. I loved it as a kid, and I loved it watching it again. I like to use quotes of other people to make me sound smarter. So I'm going to go to Jeff Andrew for this one from Time Out Online magazine. And this perfectly encapsulates what I like to feel about this movie. This is what a monster movie is supposed to be like, and it's terrific. I feel like this movie had a lot in common with movies that we've just seen recently, like A Quiet Place and Don't Breathe. The premise of something chasing you, you're trapped with something menacing, and if you make noise, you die. But this movie doesn't feel like those to me. This movie feels more like in the same bag as Ghostbusters. A premise that is taken seriously all the way through the film, but you can't help but have fun and enjoy it along with the characters because they're brilliantly written and they're perfectly executed. I feel like this is one of those movies that establishes a premise and then just perfectly executes that premise, whether it's crazy and insane, like a worm pulling someone under the ground. And it also had a lot of Jaws vibes to me. So, Darren, I'm going to give this movie... well, first of all, it's my second favorite horror comedy of all time, second only to Shaun of the Dead, in my opinion. And I'm going to give it the Wayne Gretzky. I'm giving this movie a 99%.
Well, we disagree by a large percentage on this one. That is near
Not as large as
perfection.
other times. That is near perfection, Darren. Darren,
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. When you approached me to do this podcast with you, this is the kind of movie that I feel I want to do. The movies that are fun and silly, but they're well put together and they have lots of pros. I think you really like the steaming piles, and I like the awesomes. So I feel like we're gonna be different on these things. But I think that this movie is more awesome than steaming. I really do. All right. There you go.
Everyone's entitled to their own wrong opinion.
Yes, that's right. Our total score is 86. So we will average that, and we will go into those details on the next one. We need to find out what we're doing for the next one, Darren.
Yes.
The next one is going to be a random number generated from our 21 movies that we have posted with this announcement of this one. And I've just launched the random number generator. Number 6, The Scorpion King.
Oh.
The next movie we'll be watching is a movie starring a CGI rock lobster. I hope you are ready for that.
That's good. It's perfect. All right,
I think we're going to agree more on that one. Thank you so much for everyone. Like and subscribe, and we'll be back with another one next week here. Enjoy, and goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
In 1 week's time, the prophecy will be fulfilled.
A tyrant who enslaved a nation.
He will destroy us one by one.
Tomorrow my victory is complete.
A warrior who would become their only hope.
I know the prophecy. I have seen it.
They are the last of their kind. Skilled assassins. Trained for generations in the deadly art.
Will you stand alone before the fury of his armies?
Yes. Take a breath. Take a dozen of your best men. Track him down. Kill him.